Oh, yeah. Good morning. This is your sensei, Al Bob, welcoming you to our channel, Dreamy Dreamland, with Sensei Al Bob. Just kind of finished up my breakfast, and I'm having my coffee, and it's kind of snowing out there, but it's kind of warm in here, and that's what a kitchen should be. And so I've been mulling over I wake up every morning, around 5:30, and I usually have to go to the con and eliminate an epic day. What's the epic day? I think it's an epic day, but why do you say so? You tell me, G. What time did you wake up? I woke up around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and then I had to meditate for I don't know, 20, 30 minutes before I got everything working so I could go to the facilities, the WC. And I got to do all the small stuff I neglected the past week. I woke up an hour ago. Great. Yeah, doesn't that feel good? I mean, that's kind of one of the nice things about life. You can always find something to feel great about. And it's much better to find those small things that you can feel great about than to obsess on those little annoying things that you can't do anything about. That was another one of my grandma's rules. Don't worry about the stuff you can't do anything about. Take care of the things you can. So I woke up, I meditated, and when I meditate, and this is pretty much everyone's kind of thing, why they kind of go, oh, I can't meditate. You get distracted. And that's why I have you breathe that extra 20% in and that 30% out, because when you do that, that occupies that little squirrel in your cage of your Rolodex of your mind. And that's all your mind is. Your mind isn't you. Your mind isn't your personality. Your mind is any of the above. And that's why they've been able to download people's minds for a number of years. But all they do is get a card catalog. They don't get a persona, right? They get a very artificial, two-dimensional persona, which reinforces the illusionary world, because our illusionary world is a two-dimensional world, not even three dimensions. So the other two dimensions, there's height, depth, width, and the other two are depth and time, and those are illusions. We don't really perceive those, right? I mean, we perceive them in an illusionary kind of way. They don't really exist. Time doesn't exist. It exists in this illusionary world, but in love's co-creation, it's all infinite. There is no time, right? And so that's why the Big Bang, what we are experiencing, why we had to. Okay, I'm going to show you. I actually blow my nose on my clothes. So the thing is again, we go back to that what G was talking about. He was so happy he was able to do the little things that he's put off and hasn't been to do all week, right? Feels great about that. That's really more an essence of who you are than anything else, right? In this illusionary world. And there are so many things right in front of us that are important, but we get distracted. We're distracted by the illusion of finance. There is no money. It's all debt. It's all slavery. It's all Babylonian money magic. Lend money on things that they don't have, but you have to pay them back, usury. Why do you think Jesus went into the temple and threw the money changers out? That was all usury, and it was backed by the rabbis. They were getting their cut. The only reason Jesus got hung up on the cross was he's the only one who did that. There are plenty of guys who were bringing back the dead and turning water into wine. Turning water into wine is not a big deal. You guys can do it, right? Everything is intent. Us living in the illusionary world. It's all intent. So anyway, I was waking up and I meditated for 15, 20 minutes so my limbs would work, and I kind of hobbled out to the facilities and evacuated, and went back to bed, kind of, crawled up and, took my clothes off and one of the best ways to sleep is in the buff, because then actually the heat from your body kind of goes and heats up your bed. Whereas if you're wearing clothes, it just heats up your clothes and your body, stays at 98.6. Right? So if it has to heat up more area, it will. And that's what, so you're like a nice bed warmer. And that's what's so cute about having, two people, someone to snuggle with in bed. You can really warm up a bed. I mean, I lived out in Putney, Vermont in a tent in the winter. And I had sweet Judy Blue Eyes to spark up with and and we first lived in the barn. And then, which was all sudden good. But everyone lived in the farmhouse and I lived in the barn. And then Judy kind of sparked up with me and she joined me in the barn. And the barn was really nice. And then the rest of the clan kind of moved into the barn because it was nice. I fixed it up so nice and it had a toilet, whereas the farmhouse didn't. So it had a shower, which the farmhouse didn't. So they all kind of moved in. And which got rid of, and it was fine when we were all puddling, when we were all polyamorous. But, Judy and I became more sweet on each other. And not that we didn't love our brothers and sisters, we did, but we wanted a little more of privacy. So someone donated us, the bits and pieces of a teepee, right? And so and a lot of people, they would come and visit and they would get amazing healings and energy and everything from Sensei. And he would give it freely. So people, started just, we were one of the, we weren't a commune, we were a hambu. And the average hippy dippy 70s person couldn't quite get their head wrapped around that because they were either in a cult or in a commune, which was a cult. And Sensei wasn't our leader, he was our sensei, our teacher, right? Just like I'm your sensei, El Bob, he was our sensei. So we, Judy and I put together the teepee because we wanted to learn how to put up a teepee. And the first thing we did was we built, well, the beauty of a teepee is it's the only tent I know that you can, basically have a fire in the tent, right? So we built a platform and we had a fire pit in the middle of that. And what we did was we went down to the neighborhood, propane store. And if you got so much propane, if you, got it to be delivered, they would give you a stove or a hot water heater or what have you, right? So basically, what we had the propane guys do was put a tank right near the road. So no matter how much it snowed, they could fill it up, right? And we ran a line first to our teepee, right? And we put a propane fireplace in there. And it was really amazing because this is the first time I ever saw it. They had remote control, meaning you didn't have to, had a little, and it would, like, you hear the click, 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 and it would start. And so we had that in our teepee, and it would toast that place up. And in our teepee, so there was the teepee, and then there was the opening thing that you could pull back, for fire. And we had basically put up, I don't even know what to call them, but hangings, right? Rugs, kind of around, the 3/4, and then the top was kind of open. And we could pull down across those hangings another a thing and leave still a little opening for whatever to leave, so we wouldn't suffocate. But the propane heater was great. I mean, it was called an unvented heater, meaning it burnt that propane 100%. And so we never got any CO2 or anything, and it was really comfortable, right? So, but one of the things that Sensei first taught us was meditation, right? And so when we would group meditate, to begin with, we'd all sit around Sensei or in front of Sensei, and we would meditate. And I would, I was like Homer Simpson, so I'd be like, when Homer's in church, and he, was snoring away. Well, he's in deep meditation, and all the snooty folk who used to get upset with me would say, "Oh, I can't meditate because she's making so much noise." And Sensei would go, "No, Al is in deep meditation." So, one of the things you can do, I suggest the best time to practice going to a state is when you wake up, when those dreams are really sharp, you take your little phone, I just had this dream about blah, 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 and it's on there, right? And then by voicing it, it's now in the Rolodex and also in your Akashic record, right? You don't have to really dig for it. Then you meditate and you go to sleep, into sleep state. And you go straight into your Akashic record and you look at your dream. And it's like very, very informative, especially if you do it right then and there, right? So kind of that's what I did this morning. Every morning I have to meditate to get my body in shape so I can walk, and it works. Because when I go to sleep, when you go to sleep, all of your central nervous system gets unplugged. Otherwise, you'd be running all over the house. That's what people who sleepwalk, they don't really unplug, so they kind of walk around. So I basically meditated, and I was listening to a podcast by Richard Dolan. And of all of the, disclosure, UFO, all those kind of people who are looking at the things that are, go bump in the night, he's one of the more interesting ones. Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, Joseph P. Farrell, Catherine Austin Fitz, Mr. Maxwell. Those guys are really interesting, right? As individuals who are really researchers who've been at it, another guy is David Icke. He's like the grandpa. He's been at it forever. He, back when he started, man, you get lambasted for the things he was saying, right? And he just kept saying it for 20 years. He didn't, And the other thing I like about him, he's not, he's, living, being facilitated to keep doing his work guy. He's not like got the big houses and the limos, and he's doing God's work, as they say. And there are a few others, even Stephen Greer and David Wilcox and Corey Good. They're okay because they're letting out a lot of information, but pretty much the hidden hand and the powers that shouldn't be, let them do this, because it's like a release valve. As long as this kind of is dribbling out, they don't really have to go to where it's at, right? Don't have to really, they can kick the can down the way, so they don't have to be responsible. And they can continue going on with their little minions, right? And that's kind of, what we have going on with Donnie Chump, is that he was hired to be distracted. I mean, he is doing exactly what he was hired for, right? He's not representing, you know, his base, you know, if it even exists, you know, because the media is owned by, I mean, there used to be this thing called the fair play doctrine or whatever it was. And like no corporation could own no more than five newspapers, five radio stations, or TV stations, right? And so there were about 80,000 different companies that owned all the media in the United States. And there were connective rods. I mean, there were things like, you know, the Hearst and the ABCs and the NBCs and the CBSs and those guys. But there was still a lot of individuality of the people who owned the licenses. Well, good old Billy Bob Clinton passed the FCC reorganization, blah, blah, sometime in, I think it was around 96. And basically what happened was it made it legal. No more fair doctrine, meaning back in the day, if let's say I was on a TV show and I said X, they'd have another person who would say Y and another person who said Z and another person who said D. And there'd be like five or six people with different points of view, right? Now what we have five corporations that own all of the media. And the boards of directors of those five corporations are on each other's corporations. So there's basically about 12 people that control all the media in in the world, basically, not just the United States. It goes across. And it's very interesting because, you know, RT and all those guys, I mean, they're all, it doesn't matter, right? And it controls. You control the money, you control the media, you control the people. And that's kind of what's going on. And our legislators, you know, this thing that just happened to, you know, Amazon, you know, they were going to put one of their big things in Brooklyn or Queens and give 25,000 people, you know, $100 to $300,000 job. And that would have turned Queens and New York into San Francisco. Now, the people like Ortez, you know, they screamed and yelled and jumped up and down. And the bottom line is, I think Amazon didn't even want to be in New York, but they just played this because what it has done, it has done another little deal to bring poverty to those communities because they'll go bring those jobs to some other place in Boston or New Hampshire or anything, and those people will get those jobs. And the ancillary businesses of restaurants and whatever, you know, 500,000 people will do a lot better. Yes, maybe 13, 15,000, 20,000 people will be gentrified out of their position, but that's happening across the country. Here in happy little Roanoke, we have about 30,000 people who have been here in their families, and not just black, but everybody, and they're being gentrified out. You know, the neighborhoods that were crushed from, you know, with urban renewal and all of the above, you know, since 1960, are now being gentrified. And, you know, the politicians get on the city council and the county development corps, and they basically let their buddies in themselves. I mean, they pass laws where people who are in real estate are now have these political offices, and they can sell these properties to themselves for $10. You know, there was a piece of property that was on one of the city's parks, and the city put in about $200,000 to fix it up about 4 years ago. And then they sold it to one of the guy's friends, his wife's sister's, you know, brother-in-law. That guy's wife bought the property for $10. And then the city had to spend another $300 because not only got this beautiful, that had amazing historical reference that had been renovated up to perfect shape, but it also got 5 acres. So the road to get into the park, they had to build another road. So they had to spend another $200,000. And this guy got it for $10. And that's our country. You know, everything's for sale. We have the best legislators money can buy. And, you know, in our beautiful state of Virginia, our governor, the second guy in line and the third guy in line are all like, wore, dressed up in college in 1988 as, Ku Klux Klan guys and blackface guys and raped women. Now, hey, who knows? I don't, but those are the things. And what it is, no one goes into anything without knowing what they have done. So the powers that be, or shouldn't be, let these guys or put them into office so then they could go after them and disrupt everything. We are now in the time of disruption. And totally demoralizes everybody, and B, they can quietly just go on. So the other day I was telling you about the Georgia Stones, right? That they stuck these, it looks like Stonehenge out there in the middle of the swamps of the lowlands of Georgia in the late 70s, early 80s. And then Atlanta exploded, and they built, 3 interstates. And before the interstates, there was no road. They just kind of helicoptered or dragged these stones up, put them up, had a nice 200-acre thing and mowed the lawn and left it at that. And then, 10 years later, the interstate comes by and there's an actual exit right off of 84 or 81, whatever it is, right to, Georgia Stones, out in the middle of nowhere. Bingo, you go there and you read them and they're like the 10 Commandments. So be nice to everybody, da 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 da. But the first one is, we have to respect Mother Earth, Gaia. So we have to reduce our population down to 500 million, meaning the powers that shouldn't be, the hidden hand, is getting a little, upset with everybody wanting to become educated and have freedom. And that's why we have, Johnny Chimp destroying, forget it, with 9/11, we don't have a constitution, right? But he's taking it so far out, this whole thing he did with the wall. We don't need a wall. The wall is there to keep us in, not keep you want the Mexicans here. Who else is going to pick your fruit and clean your toilet and be nice about it? Go into Walmarts, look around. All the families who are Mexican, everyone's dressed nice. The children are well behaved. You go look at the white trailer trash who've been here 9 generations. They're like de-evolving. They're screaming. They're yelling. I want this. I want this. Beating each other up, knocking things over. Pushing old people out of their motorized consumption chair. We are in a place of total de-evolve. And it's kind of like Rome. Rome was at its height when it collapsed because it was pushing all its resources out into the hinterlands to expand their empire and leaving the internal core of their empire to just collapse. And all they did for a good 100 years is buy the people off with bread and circus. That's why they invented bread, because it was addictive, Anyway, so I woke up this morning and meditated and went back to bed, and I was listening to Richard Dolan. And I went back into meditation, and this is a very interesting thing to do because I was listening to what he was going on about, and he was going on about how, all the way back to, the present alien interference with humanity is very well documentable all the way back to the mud flood, right? And you can see it, if you go through the old newspapers, you go through, all of the old books if they haven't rewritten them, and you can see all of this, right? And then when it really hit the skids, when the Germans kind of signed the deal with the reptiles, they kind of, end of World War II, German people bombed into the Stone Age, and the Nazis come through Operation Paperclip into our country, 70,000 of them, and they basically take over our government. And with the national security laws passed in 1947, to go. And that's where we've been ever since. But with FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, you can get documents, but you got to know exactly what document it is, what number it is, where to find it, all that kind of stuff. So that makes it hard to, and they only give you that document, not all the other relevant documents. But people have been doing, there's a thing called the Black Vault. Just go Google Black Vault, right? And that guy is like in his 40s, and he has been collecting data since he was 15. So anyway, so there I was meditating away, and Richard Dolan's playing in the back, and I snapped into my remote viewing state. And when you remote view, and I've tried to show you remote viewing. Every time we go into state and we go into your sanctuary of your own choosing, and we go into the tree of knowledge, that's remote viewing. You guys can go remote view anything. I've taken you there, at least 20, 30, 40 times, right? Maybe 100 times. So it's in you. You have been coming and being the chorus and then being, the shock troops of love's co-creation. You've got it down. It's all in you. That's why I'm your sensei, Al Bob. I keep, with the love and sweetness that I am, I keep, working on you guys. So you guys, no matter what happens to me, you're already, trained. Little do you know, every one of these, I almost have 400 of these programs on my channel, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And you can talk to me in person by going to my Gmail, which is the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And leave me your phone number if you wish. If you live in America, I'll give you a call. And we can talk. Otherwise, we can just, chat on Gmail. And the other thing is go read my writings at xratted.blogspot.com, right? And you will, all of those writings are, I've put them on the shamanic frame. So you read that stuff. They are, I'm like the bard of metaphor. All those metaphors, it's like the Egyptian tablets. It's like Hebrew. It's all coded. Right? Just find the key. And that's why I keep saying, guys, go read that stuff, because that will help you tune yourself up. So I went into this state of remote viewing. So Richard he did a great thing this morning, his morning chat, and he kind of went through maybe 20, 30, 40 FOIA documents, right? And each of those documents were letters that generals and people who were in Majestic 12 and who were part of the government and part of this and part of that. And it kind of just showed you what the government was thinking about the extraterrestrial thing, but just a little bit, like a little fragment. But to see that little fragment, you could see that. So remote viewing, it's like, FOIA on steroids. So it was really pretty interesting, because as he was talking about these individuals, my brain not my brain, but my, free will consciousness was remote viewing all these guys back in 46 and 47 and 48 and 49 and all those meetings. I was there. I was sitting in a chair. I was in the couch. I was like right in the room, and I was seeing all this stuff. And it really, I knew all this stuff because I already had these teachers who were guys who were in those rooms. So when I was younger, like between the ages of 9 and 30, I had all these amazing mentors who kept saying, you need to be part of this. You're the guy that we need. We want you to be the young Turk, And I just kept going, well, I'm really flattered. And I would stay in their little private circles as long as I could, until they said, okay, we can't, you got to either leave or get read in. And I would say, well, I haven't made up my mind yet. So, gee, thanks. I really like it, and I would, step back. They'd still be my friends. They'd still take me out to lunch. We'd still talk about stuff individually, because they liked the fact that they had somebody who they could talk to that wasn't on their inner circle and wasn't like, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh," but would just listen and give, interesting insights. That, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And I could think of it that way because I wasn't on the inside going, "Nyeh, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh," right? And that's the whole thing about the hidden hand, the cabal, is that these guys aren't all in lockstep. They're all, because they're still human beings. And the poor aliens, those guys don't even have a clue. They can't even tie their shoelaces. They're making millions of these hybrids that those people don't even know what a refrigerator is. Well, research, that wall was put there to keep the American people in. That scene with Brad Pitt from a zombie apocalypse movie where the people are like crawling up on top of each other like ants trying to get over the wall. I mean, that's what it's going to be like. But us trying to get out, not us, not the Mexicans trying to get in. I mean, it's pretty amazing. If you go look at the Justice Department and the ICE, there are, it's at the lowest level of people coming into the United States illegally ever. And there's less crime ever by immigrants, right? So, and the drugs that are coming in tractor trailers by the CIA and the NSA and all those they're the big drug dealers, guys. And, the things that are in our food, in our drinking water, in our air are way worse than the opiates. And the stuff that's on the screen, way worse than the opiates. Hey, Sarah, good morning. Research, gee, good to see y'all. So I was just talking about this morning when I went into meditation to get my body to be able to work, because every night it unplugs, and so all of the things that I've shamanically set up to allow my legs to work that they shouldn't, but they do, to allow my system to process. Like, my endocrinologist says, boy, you're the healthiest dead guy I know. Because there are certain things in my body that just don't work. And no matter how much weight I lose, or if I was doing as many I couldn't do the jumping jacks that John did yesterday morning because it would snap my feet right off my ankles, right? I don't know if you've ever watched me walking in one of John's videos or mine. I really have to look at every place my foot goes down, because if I steps on something and my foot turned, it would snap right off. The only thing holding my left foot onto my left ankle is the muscles and the tendons. Everything else is all those 9 little bones that kind of act as a hinge, gone. And I used to wear these big metal clamps on my leg and have a walker. No, I don't do any of that. That's because every morning I meditate, and every night I meditate, and maybe 10 times a day I go into state. And that's why I do this for you guys, because it's okay. All of my hey, he's finally awake again. Okay, good. So hey, stay on top of this, and you got to do what you came here to do. And if you go to my xratted.blogspot.com and read those 6 cuts, those 6 chapters, those 6 stories within my novel, it really gives a very vivid picture of who I am, where I came from, what I'm doing here, right? So if you want to know about your Sensei Al Bob, give that stuff a read. And it is shamanically written, meaning it is a code. I left it there. I wrote 26 novels. I'm writing 2 more, so I'm heading towards 28. And they're all shamanically written, right? Not just there to entertain. That's why a lot of, I gave that. I've given my novels to a good buddy of mine who used to work for Doubleday and McGraw-Hill. He was an editor and an executive, Anyway, so he would love to read my stuff. And he's the one who told me that my writings were like James Joyce on acid. And he goes, I had to read this thing 6 times to get what you were talking about. And I said, so? He goes, well, then I realized why you made me read it 6 times, because it kind of click, 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 came together like a combination lock. And I said, whoa, this guy is talking about stuff that at first glance, you know, you have to read it almost 6 times. And that's why I wrote it in cuts, so you can read them individually, right? So each one is, between 40 and 60 pages long, or even less, like between 20 and 60 pages long. So you can read 20 to 60 pages, at least I can, read that maybe 3 or 4 times in an hour. First I skim it, then I read it a little slower, and then I read each word and make little notes next to it, to say what I think it's really, or look at the code or what, because everything's got a code, even if people don't realize they're writing in code. And that's why the Old Testament is, because it was written in Hebrew, and Hebrew, there's 22 letters in the alphabet, right? Each letter has a numerical number subscribed to it, right? And when those words were written, it was more about what the numerical, all those numbers were, because then you plugged it into the, computer of Cabal, and it spat out what it was talking about. And that's why that's why I went to, a Jewish Lubavitcher to become a rabbi. And my landlord ran, it was his Lubavitcher school. And he said, you ought to be a rabbi. After about 3 or 4 years, and he was my landlord, and he would come up at least a couple times a month to sit down and talk to me about this, that, and the other thing. And because he had nobody to talk theology about that had an open mind. All the other rabbis and the other different sects, and even in the Hasidim and the other Orthodox sects in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, were, very dogmatic. This is what it is, right? Or that wasn't what he was about. He was all about decoding, right? When he realized that's what I was about, he said, you ought to be a rabbi. I said, Rabbi, I'm Roman Catholic, I'm Irish, German, and Italian. And he would say, well, no one's perfect. And so anyway, I spent 3 years in his Lubavitcher, and studying the Kabbalah. And pretty much just him and I, because all the other people just wanted to be rabbis so they could be rich and powerful, right? They wanted to be Zionist. They wanted to be like my rabbi, own a lot of real estate. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. And it's 37 minutes and 37 seconds. So have any of you guys had that experience of going into state and then snapping into the remote viewing mindset? Maybe we'll do that tonight. And I will, because I took some notes, and I think what we'll do is I'll do exactly what I did this morning. I will, collect all the information that Richard Dolan had on his morning little chat about all of these guys, and we will go remote view all those letters and where those guys were and who they were and what was going on at the time in 1946, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, up to 60, because that's what he had. And you will get the picture of what's going on. And that will enable you to go take a look at this stuff on your own. And that's what I want. I want you guys you're adepts now. You're not just chuckleheads. You're adepts. You're part of the cadre, And everyone in the cadre is an adept, right? And whether you come into the chat, then you're part of the chorus, because you're singing, you're talking. And then when you go into state in the evening with me, then you are, the shock troop of love's co-creation. But we're all are relations, and no one is the other, right? They're all our relations, and no one's either good or bad, or, and we're all getting on the bus, and we're all going home to love's co-creation. Once we pop the bubble of the Luciferian illusion, and meaning the Big Bang, it all happened. It's like not going on for centuries. That's the illusion, they say our universe is 16 billion years old. Well, that's nothing. compared to eternity, that's right there. The kind of, hey, this is an illusion. This thing's only lasted 16 billion years. No, sorry, that's like nothing compared to eternity. Right? So, hey, Webb, Sarah, dear, we're all doing good. Waking up. And you can't be literal about these puddin-head politicians because they're just reading the script given to them. None of these people are. Like I keep saying, our legislators are the best money can buy. And once they get in power, no matter, even if they diluted them, I know a lot of politicians over the years, because, especially when I worked in the corporate scene of the we live in a corporation. We don't live in a country. We're not a democracy. We're a corporate state. We're a fascist oligarchy. That's what fascism state. It's not necessarily evil. It's just a corporate state. It's what it is. Well, that's what we have been since Christopher Columbus got here, a corporate state. And that's what our 1776 war was about. No, it was about rebranding. The War of 1812, rebranding, right? Why did we stay those 13 colonies? Why weren't we, from 1492 to 1592 to 1692 to 1776? That's almost 400 years. Really? And all those years we didn't go across the United States, from, Maine to, California. I mean, we had California. It was already there. The Spanish went there in the 1500s. So why didn't? Because there were over 20 million Indians in the middle. And it wasn't until the mud flood came and wiped them out that we industrialized, the North for the Civil War. And that's what it was about. The Civil War wasn't about the North and the South and slavery. Not really. What it was about was, industrializing North America so it could just go across and wipe the Indians out and put railroads through and other technologies and be the China of our times. Now, things are going quicker. It took 500 years for that to happen to North America. And we did the same thing to China. Not we, but the powers that shouldn't be and the hidden hand did that to China in less than 30 years. So that means its fall will be even quicker. And China is going to be, I feel sorry for China, because they drank the Kool-Aid and went down the rabbit hole and didn't realize, the guy who's president, I'm going to be president for life. Don't think so. They're building out this infrastructure that has been laid down for them by the hidden hand. As soon as it's done, it's going to be taken away from them. Sorry. And see, what, all of the morons of the political structure of China, again, their legislators bought and they're all corrupt. And so you're a guy or a gal who wants to do the right thing, and you're in your neighborhood and you're trying to do the right thing, like this girl from Queens. She wants to represent, but she gets hooked on this, she dropped her anchor and she's just going in circle and circle. And so they thought, oh, here's a putz we can really take care of. So they put her into as a congressman, and they give her a lot of media attention, and they're just playing this poor girl, right? And I'm sure she's been in there, and they, said, oh, congratulations, we need new blood like you. Maybe you'll be president. Look at Obama. Look, you could be the next Obama. You really could. First woman of color. Oh, wow. Ooh, isn't it? And by the way, and they take this little envelope and they slide it in her direction. She opens it up, and there are more $1,000 bills not hundreds, not Benjamins, $1,000 bills that she can even count. Like there's maybe $250,000 in $1,000 bills in this big, thick envelope. And in there are a couple of pieces of paper that are folded that show that she has been given stock options. is she only votes a certain way, just like Nancy Pelosi. Why is Nancy Pelosi, when she went to Congress, she was, came from, she just owned a little real estate and was, a city, counselor, right? Now she has a fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars. She voted on things that made it legal for her to do inside trading. I mean, senators and congressmen write the laws. So they've already written laws that says, okay, we're going to write this law that will make this industry, like cell phones and, the internet and a whole bunch of things. And they buy the stock of Apple and Microsoft, and, when it was like 30 cents a stock, right? And that's how it goes. And that's how they get corrupt. Very simple. People, really hard for people to not go there. I mean, hey, I'm telling the powers that be and the Chuckaluck hidden hand, hey, I'm your boy. I'm just like Dr. Quigley. I'm up at an age, and I'd be glad to be your next Dr. Quigley. I loved, I used to go to his lectures at Georgetown. And that's when I met Gary Allen, who wrote None Dare Call a Conspiracy. Now, there's a good book you should read. And I met a whole bunch of other folks. All these people were from FR and all the different other entities. I'm a scholar. I knew all these, got to meet, I went to these lectures. I met them. We go have a cup of coffee. We talk. And, I got brought to one of those people who were at, Cornell. You know, she was part of that. She brought me there. She was my good friend. She wanted, her ulterior motive was she just gotten married and she just bought a farm and she's just started her little empire of crystals. And she wanted somebody to, keep her husband company so he wouldn't go off the tracks. And that was, why she dragged me there and put me into Cornell and got me into the gravy train of being a scholar, looking at things in a non-scholastic way, not being in the box. And for 20, 30 years, I did that, and I loved doing it because they paid me pretty good. I got to move around the world and see different things and different people and the most interesting of people who really knew stuff. And I could write a lot and I would turn it over to who was ever in charge, and they would write what I wrote because as my friend said, I'm like James Joyce on acid, and you can't put that in the Council of Foreign Relations Journals of International Affairs. But it was kind of fun to read the stuff that I wrote and then somebody rewrote and put in the right, vernacular to be digested. And I went along with that because I knew everything. I would hang out with these shamans and they would teach me, well, all you got to do is do it this way and and that's what I do every show. I put shamanic energy. So listen, guys, I know the AIs are watching. I know the hidden hand is watching, and I'm ready to, I could use a nice check. I could use a better lifestyle than this. I'd be happy to be driven around in limousines. I'm getting too old to drive. And you would love it. The cadre, the chorus, you you need some folks that will help you navigate this. I mean, you've already boxed yourself in to a point because of your arrogance. You like, it's really the folks who are like all bent out of shape, the Christians, oh, it's the end of times. Not going to happen. The Luciferian illusion here is, as long as they can keep this thing going, they're going to keep it going. And love's co-creation wants our free will to choose. It's not going to interfere. It might, like us, we are the little pebble in the pond to bring, that little wake into the tsunami of love. That's as much interference as love's co-creation is going to do, because it's up to us to do this, right? So I'm not, and I keep saying, listen, everyone's got to get on the bus, and not like these morons who want to go live underground. you know, the Mount Taylor project of the 70s, wasn't just about boring out, all of the uranium in that mountain. No, it was about building an underground city. It was one of the points of the hive. And I didn't want to go down there. I did all this work above the ground, and the site was 20 square miles. I knew that sucker was no frigging mine, but one time I had to go down there just once, and I made after almost died. When he went down in the elevator, the board, the safety board, was real high tech. It was this piece of plywood with nails in it, and they had these like little paper circles with an aluminum thing on it, and they would write your name on both, right? And they were like these things that they were used for laundry, right? But they would have this box of them. They'd write your name, and they would put one of them on the board on the nail, and they would give you the other one. You put it in your pocket, and once you came up, you would put it on the board, and then after the next day, in the morning before anybody, at the end of each shift, they had 3 shifts. They were not by days. Sometimes they had 4 shifts. Anyway, my boss said, "Or they got this, transformer down there that is, really high voltage. It has to be tuned. You're the only guy I got to do that. You got to go down." I said, "I don't want to go down that hole. That's not like in my contract." And I said, "These guys have been trying to kill me for the last 3 months. I'm not going down there." Just like this thing, I'm going to try to kill me. So he said, "Well, how much is it going to cost me?" And I just said, $3,000 in cash. This is 1971, and you'll get me out of here. I got, get me someplace else where you can use my talents. And so he said, "Okay, you do that. I mean, you're pretty much all done with what you had to do on top of the ground. You do this. You get, you come back to Albuquerque. I'll see you, Saturday. This was like a Wednesday, so you come back Friday, and I'll see you Saturday, and I'll pay you, and I'll have another project for you that won't be there." I said, "Okay, I'm down. I'm good. I'll do it." So I go down there, right? I show up, and we get on the elevator, and I got my little hard hat with a light on it, and I got all the other stuff that you go down there, your little safety stuff, and I'm going down there, and I get a little lecture before I go down in the hole. They tell me that I got safety phones, and if you hear this horn and it goes off twice, it means they're going to do an explosion. And then they start doing a blast of the horn. First there's 10 minutes. They do the double tap, and then they do 10 minutes, and then 9 minutes, and they do a countdown. And then once they get to a minute, they do it every 10 seconds. And then when they get down to 10 seconds, it's 10, 9, 8. Anyway, so I go down there, and we come down, and there's this gigantic hall. And I mean gigantic. I mean, it's bigger than a football stadium. I mean, it's just they're really mining, and this thing is like 300 feet high, and it goes as far as you can see. And I kind of realized the earth is round because this hole is starting to take the curvature of the earth, and it's lit up with these kind of xenon stadium lights that are bright, and they're up there, and it's like bouncing off the canopy of this gigantic stadium size hall. And off there are different big holes going in different directions. And these holes are pretty big. They're 60 feet high. They're 60 foot circumference. And so the guy go down, who's showing me what I have to do, takes me over, and they have these like little electric golf carts. We get in one of those, and we drive off. I have my little bag of tools, and we throw it in there, and he kind of drives off about 3 or 4 miles down one of these it's like 60 foot all the way around. And the circumference of this thing, it's not like they were like jackhammering and then no, these things are smooth, like they were burnt cord out. And so we drive down 4 or 5 miles, and then there's a fork in the road, and we kind of go down one of these things. And now these things are now about 20 foot high, and they are also cored out, right? And we go down that 4 or 5 miles, and then we get to a place where it's maybe 10 foot high, and those do look like they had jackhammers, and they had like these rods up into the ceiling with plates on them so it wouldn't collapse. And we go down, I don't know, a mile, if that, and there is a substation. And that's kind of what my bread and butter was. That's what I was really good at. We did a lot of that on the surface. It's a 20 square mile site. We put high voltage, came in from the state at 980, went down into a distribution. I wired that one. Then there were these pipes that went for miles and miles and miles. And we pulled, 500 MCM, and that was taking, 90,000 volts to other distribution points where the power went down. And so I spent those 3 months there doing that stuff. And this was one of those, but way underground. And it was bringing 980 down there. So I had to tune the major transformer. And I won't get into the esotericness of tuning a high voltage scalar transformer, but it takes, you got to know what it is, you got to have experience, and if you do, it's really not that difficult. But if you don't know what it is or haven't done it before, well, then it's like, forget about it. You won't even know what the fuck you're looking at. So I'm like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I'm just thinking about, I'm out of here in 2 days, and he's going to have a nice envelope for me, and it'll be all good. So, and I'll have a new job. I'll go someplace interesting, right? So, because I'd been working for them now 4 months, and I'd proven myself as like one of their most valuable employees, and all was good, and I've survived about 5 different things that should have killed me. My nickname there was the dead guy, and people were putting book on the time and day I would die. So I'm down there working away, and then all of a sudden I hear, which I go, And then it stops, and I goes, that means they're going to blow something up. And I'm looking around, and then I hear, and that's the 10-minute buzzer, and I'm looking around, and there's an emergency phone, right? And I pick it up, and it falls off. It's this red phone, and I pick it up, and it falls off the wall, and there's nothing on the no buzz, no hum, no click, no nothing. And I follow the wire about 20 feet, and it comes to the end. And I'm like looking at the wire like this and looking at the phone, and I go, I am fucked. Because when the part of my training that morning was, if you hear that horn, that means they're going to blow something up close enough to you where you better get out of there. Well, I got there. It took 20 minutes to drive to where I was in a golf cart. I mean, to walk out of there, and I have no idea in what direction to go because I have no idea what they're going to blow up. It's like a lot better to stay. The protocol was you stay where you are, you get on the phone, they stop it, they come and get you. Well, when I went to the phone and it came to an end of a wire, I was like, uh-oh. And so they had these pallets of bags of concrete because they had this stuff called gunite, which they'd mix up the concrete and then they would spray it under pressure up on, stuff, and that's how they would cover the ceiling with concrete. So I'm looking around and I go, I see this, there's about 5 pallets. And so there's this one, 5 pallets. And so there's 2 pallets, 3 pallets that are kind of right next to each other. So what I do is I start dragging bags off them and build myself a little bunker. And then I go over and I get bags, and they were like 50-pound bags, and I'm just huffing them. And so every corner of that thing was, protected by a bag. There were no holes, no things. And I kind of got in and dragged bags down over the doorway that I had. And then I took my shirt and my coat off and wrapped it around my head, right? And I wrapped my shirt around my head and then wrapped my coat around my head. So am I back? Someone just tried to bounce me off the telling you this story. Am I here? Is there anyone here? Is there anyone left? Am I here? Talking like a sausage. Am I still here? Here. Okay. Well, again, I keep saying, don't believe anything I say. I'm just your sensei, Al Bob. You know? These are all griot stories. Anyway, so I wrap my head up and, I hunker down in my little bunker and, they get down to 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds, and then bob, boom, right? And I can't hear or see. I can barely breathe because this whirlwind of dust and chunks of stone come flying by my little bunker. And then after, the all clear sound gets, and I, come stumbling out, and I start walking up the path to get the fuck out of there. And then this guy in the little golf cart comes strolling down there. He looks at me, and what the concussive force of that explosion forced all kinds of concrete dust into my skin, and I look like an albino. And that's why this ear doesn't hear too well. It kind of blew that eardrum out. But I survived because when I got out of my little bunker, all the bags that were on the surface were ripped up. Meaning, if I'd just been standing there, I would have been Swiss cheese, And so the guy comes in, oh my God. And so he puts me in the golf cart and they take me straight to the elevator and take me up, and there's an ambulance waiting for me. And I go, wait a minute, because I could hardly talk. And where's that guy? And the guy who was the safety officer, because my little ring was still on that board. And if there weren't two of those little tags, they're not supposed to blow it. So it's his job to go, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't do it. Good. Then they'd look up where I was. Oh, he's going to be over there. We better go get him. And I wanted to kill the guy. Luckily for him, I was like, I couldn't talk. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, I was looking up for a steel pipe to hit him with. Anyway, so they kind of took me to the, medical thing and cleaned me up. And basically, a guy in the Gulf Mineral Oil department came and again, said, okay, yeah, we're sorry about that. And, we're going to drive you back to Albuquerque right now. And if you sign this release form, we'll give you a nice check. So I did. And they drove me back to my boss, right? And he basically put me up in a nice, could just recuperate. He knew I liked, because we went to Las Vegas together. He knew I liked, that. And so, he sent me off to Los Alamos and San Diego and Kirkland Air Force. And for the next 6 months, that's where I worked. Los Alamos, San Diego, Kirkland Air Force Base. And each one, I had a stay of about a month and a half, 2 months. And so, and then I was exposed at Kirkland to something that, again, I just left. I was given, again, a nice envelope of cash and the opportunity to get out of Dodge and make myself scarce, which I did. And I'll tell you, I've already told that story, but I'll tell it again. And again, if you guys are looking for anything that I tell you, don't believe anything I say. Nothing is true. Don't you understand? Nothing is true. Everything that has been told to you is a lie. Come on, guys, wake up. That's what these stories are about. These are shamanic stories. They're supposed to wake you up. They're supposed to unlock, so you're not a mud puppet. Anyway, so that's about an hour and 4 minutes and 54 seconds. Yeah, I'm drinking my first cup of coffee too, Sarah. So, what I want to know is let's hear some of your stories. Have any of you experienced, you know, statistically, 1 in 3 people have been abducted on this planet? I mean, something's going on with, the hidden hand. I mean, we're owned by these characters. And, the hidden hand is not human beings. It's this cabal of insectoids and reptiles and human beings too, but they have been enhanced transhuman robots, And all this technology has been around for a long time. Like I said, go read Joseph P. Farrell, right? He's a really good person to start off with, and he's a real good scholar because him and like Richard, what's his name? Starts with a D. The guy I was talking about. I mean, all those people like just Catherine Austin Fitz, Linda Moulton Howe, David Icke. They are all scholars in their own rights, and some of them, like Maxwell, he's a real scholar. I mean, he was trained like me as a scholar. The others just became scholarly. Richard Dolan, that's it. He's also a trained scholar, historian, and so he really goes at this in that way. Same with Joseph P. Farrell. So all the books they write are unbelievably documented and give, you know, 20, 40, 100 pages of things. Hey, go read this book, go read that book. And you read any of their books, and there's another guy, oh, Jim. He's a guy who wrote the first real book about the Kennedy assassination that the movie JFK was based on. Jim Moore. Now that guy was a great guy. He was loads of fun. I met him a number of times at these early conferences. And he was another, he was a real, investigative reporter. He really, not like these chuckleheads in the media. So all this stuff is there, gang, and I am just your sensei, Al Bob, telling you, your griot, telling you stories to kind of, spark up those, as Perot used to say, the little green cells, gray cells, okay. And that's what I'm here for. But I'd love to hear your tales of abduction, of whatever strangeness that you have seen or been part of, you know. And that's why I tell you these stories, so you can feel safe to tell us your stories. Because, there is no hiding. It's better to get it out. That's like Corey Good, I'm sure all those guys are stepped on. They are represent the powers that shouldn't be, but they're doing a good job bringing a lot of information out. Now it's just being used to as disinformation, but all information is neither good or bad. It's just information. It's how you, the observer, percolate it. As they would say, we have to parse this out, right? So, anybody got any fun things you can let us in on? Robert, where are you located? What's your cultural motif? Doo, 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 doo. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. And debunking, you can pick any specific little, like, when I said that politicians get envelopes with $1,000 bills in it, okay, so they are like $100,000 treasury notes. How about that? How's that, Robert? You feel better? You're more kind of soothed with that little piece of information. You know, that's why every evening I take you folk into your Akashic record. That doesn't lie. You know, don't believe anything I say. Nothing. Nothing is true. Nothing in this illusionary world is true. Everything you've been told is a lie. There you go, Sarah. So, what happened when you were unplugged? What was that kind of, gestalt, that momentary aha? And what did you feel during that part of your life when they were always around, but you never saw them? Because we all see that, all those little shadows. They're just at the edge of our perception. Well, in my X-rated blog spot, I only have one novel, not 26, just one. And of that one novel, I only give three-quarters of it. There's six slices. Because I didn't want to, dump a lot of stuff in one place and then nobody read anything. So I just put one novel, which explains me pretty well. There's six slices there, right? There's cut one, two, three, four, five, six, right? And the other, that last quarter, I didn't put because, you have to be, I don't want to say initiated, that's not the right word, but, sparked up, through these shows, through going into state. Once you kind of go into your Akashic record, you can read all of my stuff, it's there. But, I didn't want to dump everything in one place at one time. I want, sure. I mean, I set this thing up as it says Griot Publishing. I need help doing all of this. You know, I want it, when they say, you read, when more than two come together in my name, meaning love's co-creation, that's when amazingness happens. Yes, I'm your fun-loving, Sensei Alba. But yes, that's why I was looking for a cadre of adepts. I need help on everything I'm doing. I can't do this all by myself, you know? I can tell stories twice a day. That's what I can do. I can put little nuggets up there where you go, oh, wow, look at this. Well, if he's got 26 other novels, oh, my Lord. So, I'm up for this. And spring's coming. So right now, winter, like right now, look at that out there. It's like gray and snowy, icy, and I have other medical things I have to do with between now and the end of mid-April. But after end of April, May, hey, I'll go anywhere, do anything. I'm heading back to the deep green. You can come there, and what's beautiful about deep green, it's as deep in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by unbelievable, beautiful a waterfall in my backyard, a gigantic river in my backyard, a gigantic lake in my neighborhood of 1,200-mile coast. It's one little teeny county road, no big highways, no big industry, no big. You can see the night sky like you can't believe anywhere else you've seen. Yet, 40 miles to the west is Johnson City, where ETSU, which is a great university with some great people, lots of great resources, and 30 miles to the south is, um, you know, um, App State, right in Boone, North Carolina, which has a lot of great resources. I mean, it's a party school, so the teachers and kids aren't as interesting as those in ETSU. And then 60, 70 miles from my front door, maybe 80 miles, because where I'm at, if by the crow flies, Asheville is 60 miles from my front door. But by having to go to Johnson City and then down 26, it's maybe 70, 80 miles. Well, there's Asheville, the hipster capital of the universe, and I have a ton of friends there. that we can camp out on the front lawn. We can have parties. Because they would love it if I show up, because it would. Oh wow, the old good old times when Al was here as the party ringleader, right? I mean, there's people constantly saying, "Well, you just live over." I said, "Well, you come visit me, and then I'll come visit you." I mean, I've been visiting them for years, and they come up once or twice and go, "Oh, I wish I could live here." I said, "Sure, go ahead, you can live here." But oh no, I have to go back, have a business, have this, have that, blah 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 blah. Well, that's okay. I'm, it's fine. Because so you come to, we got access to all of that, right? And I can, those college towns, there are a lot of interesting young people and teachers and people who want to. ETSU has a lot of interesting people, and it's a college of 30,000, has probably 1,700 interesting professors and instructors, and there's some really interesting things going on in Johnson City. So, it's one of those little nodes, and where I am, I'm right in the middle of nowhere. But it's only 40 miles over that way, 30 miles that way. I have to go 28 miles to make a phone call. And I'm on the corner of three counties and two states. So I'm like in no man's land. I mean, there's no cell, there's no nothing, no cable, no satellite, no, barely have electricity, and no police, no ambulance, no hospital, no nothing, right? So that's why I can't be there in the winter. If anything happened to me, that would be it. They'd find me in the spring being eaten by those squirrels. Darn squirrels. Anyway, let's get lost in the green. Come on. The invitation's open. Like I said, I'll be there mid-April, early May, something like that. And I'll be there until, we go on the road. 5 miles off the map. I'm in the middle of 200 square mile Appalachian uber poverty. Yep. So that's why I kind of want to, take the cadre and build the traveling video art circus, because tons of universities would love to have us visit them, and they'd love to pay us some cash. And if we set up the 501c3 nonprofit umbrella of the Humanities Artist Trust International, that's what it'll be. And we will get a ton of grant money, right? Because, I am, I don't have a political bone in my body. I don't believe in anything. So I accept everybody, right? I mean, there's a neck of the woods right here, and that's why Roanoke is an interesting place, a slice of everybody's pie. So these here, I mean, it's not like Christiansburg, where they had to import the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis. We got them right here, and there's a whole little, that's what's interesting about Roanoke, because there's the Roanoke Valley and the Roanoke City, but there's Vinton and Salem, which are part of that whole city thing. And inside of those are neighborhoods like Garden City, and there are about 6 of these, Melrose, and there are about 6 of these like little hamlets in these little necks of the woods, and they represent all kinds of interesting groups of people. So if you want to go talk to any of them, you just go there. You hang out in the coffee shop or the general store and talk to those folks. And so I've talked to every kind of person. For an anthropologist and a sociologist, this town is great because it's a slice of every pie. And that's what it is. And so, that's where we're at. Okay, let's see what you guys have been saying. McDonald, my friend at UWO, was poet in residence, and security kicked him out of the campus due to his pocket man appearance. Yes, people, I gave a lecture at a university, and the kids were like, so, what he's saying, first they wanted to show that I was wrong, right? So they were just constantly Googling every sentence, but you're wrong. Then they'd Google, and I said, just go Google it. They'd go, he's right. And, after that lecture, they went and complained to the administration, was that, that it was unfair that I lectured to them because I showed them things they didn't want to see. And the guy who's the head of like, he's not he wasn't the president, he wasn't the chancellor, he was the third guy in, who had more to do with the everyday life of the students. He said, "Well, is there anything wrong?" That he said, "No, no, everything he said was right," and that was what was worse. It like broke my worldview. I mean, I can't believe I'm so distraught. And he showed me that I'm going to graduate in 2 weeks, and my education is worthless, and I owe $70,000. I can't get a job. Ah! And they said, "Sorry, Al. You can't. You got to stop." And I said, "Hey, don't worry about it." you know, I enjoyed the lunch. And Jane, that's what I did for a good 20 years. You know, had other governments, countries, nonprofits, entities pay for my education, and not only do they pay my education, they paid me to get it. And they didn't make me. They liked the fact that I wasn't in a box. My speciality was to look at things in a non-prejudicial, scholastic way. I wasn't a scholastic; I was a scholar, and there was respect for that. And all my teachers around were all these old guys who were, greatly respected. Like Joseph Campbell, Dr. Quigley, and now people go, "Who?" You know, is that a sneeze? Of course. I'm in a cold concrete castle, heating myself with a stove. A stove. But, I don't get sick because of my meditation. I keep myself at a energetic that is fine. But, it's dusty, it's this, it's that. And so, yes. When your nose runs, that's a good thing. It's kind of flushing your sinuses out. And so as long as you don't keep the crap in your body. That's why spitting, sweating, crapping, urinating, those are all good things. And breathing. That's why if you breathe in that 20% and you breathe out that 30%, that right there eliminates more toxins from your body than any other thing, right? So keep breathing, kids. Yeah, being a student. And that's, you are my adepts. That's what an adept is, a student. I am your sensei al Bob. Sensei, what does that word mean? Teacher, right? But I'm kind of, the textbook that we don't have textbooks in this course. When I used to teach, so I was in these universities, and you know, I had my project to work on. It really had nothing to do with anybody else. And they were just housing it in X, Y, or Z university. So, and that university would be happy because they would get a big chunk of change, money, that they could pay the board and the, higher ups that money. And they would get money for that, whatever department that I was, housed in, they would get money. And, but they had no authority over me because my paycheck came from somewhere else. But I was just, doing it there. And if I was there for more than one semester, once they got used to me, they would come and say, "Listen, we have nobody to teach intro this or intro that. Can you?" Sure. And I said, $100 for every class, and give me a student assistant, and let me write my own contract to the students of what we were going to study. I said, "Fine, just you know, be there for that class." So, I'd be the intro guy for psychology or sociology or environmental science or whatever. I was like the substitute teacher. And on my, what do they call it? You put it up there and say, "Hey, this is what the course is about." Oh, it'll pop into my mind. But anyway, course curriculum. And I would put up there, "I guarantee you an A. Just show up." And then underneath that and smaller, still very visible. You can't, and you miss more than three classes, you fail, period, right? And then under that, I would say no tests, no quiz, no papers, no textbook, right? And then in the smallest of print, it would say, if you ask me, is this on the quiz, you immediately fail, right? So the first day of class, like 700 kids would show up because in big letters I'd say, I guarantee you an A, just show up. All right. So they showed up. Right. So, my assistant would read off you know, Bob Smith, Susie Q, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd get them all to stand up in a long row, if there were lots of, and that first class would be in an auditorium or a lecture hall, right? And so I'd get them all to stand up in a row and I'd have them count off 1 to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you got to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that next person said 8, I said, okay, you can leave. And so just in doing that, I would cut out three, I would go from like 200 students down to 50, right? And then I break them up into 7 groups. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the ones over here, all the twos over there, all the threes over here, all the five, right? And then I'd say, okay, this is how it works. There is no textbook, but there is assigned reading in the library, and you can take that. You can't take that out of the library. You got to read it in the library. You have to read in. All the ones have to go read all the books that are from ones, and you have to study together. This is a class about the exceptional students, and all the ones have to be there for all the ones, and so say you all, and all the twos and the threes and the four, right? And each of that group has to write a textbook about what we're studying. And what we're studying, I'm just going to tell you stories. You guys are going to read a reading textbook, and then you're going to turn it over to me. I have to publish. Can you hear me? Tommy, can you hear me? So, still hear me? Uh-oh. Well, like Uncle Ump's got me. Can you hear me calling? There I am. I had to move down into the colder zone close to the Wi-Fi antenna. Anyway, when I start talking about stuff, somebody says, "Oh, they can't hear this." Anyway, long story short was that I would get down from that like 500 kids in that auditorium to about somewhere between 7 and 20 students. Who were the students I was looking for, right? And they found that I was Say Al Bob, and they loved it. And they wish all my college was like this. I learned so much, right? Because they learned about themselves. And that's what I'm here to do with you guys, right? Get you to be that shock troops of love's co-creation. Be that little pebble in the pond. So tonight, I will see. So we're heading towards 1 hour, 30 minutes. There it is. And at 30 seconds, I'm going to say, okay, gang, see you tonight at 7 p.m. And think about the stories you want to tell me and the cadre, okay? I love you all. Remember, you can get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail, and I respond pretty well. And if you leave me a phone number, I'll give you a buzz. And I love you guys. Doo. Again, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9.